Welcome everyone. I am Jeff Galley, Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at the USG, which means that and our group, oversees things like the Regents Awards selection process, the Chancellor's Learning Scholars, most recently the past 2.5 years, and soon the return of the USG Teaching and Learning Conference after the pandemic. We have a couple of other new projects in bud, and we'll be sharing those as we move forward. The title of this session is Promoting Student Success Pedagogies. We have two institutions represented in a very robust panel. We welcome everyone to this presentation on student success pedagogies. We have different types of programs and different types of institutions. I'll leave those names up for a second so you can identify Jordan, Cynthia, Michael, Michele, Chris, and Scott. They will be speaking first Georgia College, followed by Kennesaw State's presentations. But before we go into the institutional programs and presentations, I want to kind of set the table about the importance of student success pedagogies with a little bit of more contextual information. This is a 2014 study, so it is somewhat dated, but it's a meta-analysis of 228 studies comparing traditional lecture results in terms of exams to active learning methods or strategies. And it turns out that in the classes and the courses where active learning is employed, grades were improved by at least half a letter grade, and that's across a very, very large N. And that using straight lecture, traditional lecture, that the failure rates compared to those in active learning classes were 55% higher. So what I want to think about is reflection and intentionality driving changes in the way that we teach through courses, through their design, through their in-class minutes, the delivery, through the out-of-class, usually, not always, experiential element, the high-impact practices, and through that assessment of student learning, and think of it in some sort of iterative way that we can move outward into each of these areas or all of them. I think Michele may say that course design encompasses all four of the contexts. I'm sure he will. At the system level, we have initiated a program I referred to a minute ago called the Chancellor's Learning Scholars, which is the model for that is a series of faculty learning communities that are led by a Chancellor Learning Scholar, nominated by an institution, approved, selected, and supported by the CETLs, the Centers for Teaching and Learning training that the directors offer each year. These topics, these are our general, these are the predominant topics. We have a few others, but these are the primary ones. And we do not have time to go into the individual pedagogies, but each one of these is evidence-based. A deep end of the pool has its own set of research studies and studies that support the use of these strategies. And in the chat box, when I stop sharing screen, I will post a brief handout, a one-page handout of these with links to more materials on these particular student success strategies. So the system office, Dr. Denley, the academic team, really have come into a greater support for specific classroom strategies and activities of these sorts. And you'll notice that high impact practices is right in the middle. So I want to turn it over to Jordan, but I want to leave with this target. It's kind of a bullseye. What we're focused on, whatever the context, whether it's the design, the delivery, the experience of these courses, of the learning outside of the classroom. We're focused on student learning as our goal. And I think that these institutional presentations, the presentations by these two institutional teams, will reveal the diversity that we're talking about, but also the commonality that we share. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jordan. Let's see.
Hold on, Jordan. I'm trying to get your
No worries.
PowerPoint up. There it is. It always looks different on those little thumbnails. Okay, so hopefully you are seeing the screen now.
Yes.
Good.
All right. I'm Jordan Kofer. I'm Associate Provost for Transformative Learning Experiences at Georgia College. And I've got two co-presenters with me today.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Michael Stratton. I'm the Dean of the J. Whitney Bunting College of Business and new to the USG since July 1.
I'm Cynthia Albee. I'm the Faculty Director of GC Journeys, a professor of teacher education, and many of you know me from my work with the Governor's Teaching Fellows.
All right. Can we go to the next slide, Denise? So we want to do something, we're going to do this a few times, which is we just want to take 30 seconds to just get your responses. So we may not have time to look at each individual response, but I think it's helpful to see what other institutions are doing and kind of these experiences. So if we could take 30 seconds and I'll set my timer and go ahead and in the chat, just tell how your institution uses high impact practices to support student success. We'll be talking about student success pedagogies today, and for us at Georgia College, a lot of student success pedagogies involve high impact practices.
All right, I'm starting the timer, 30 seconds.
Okay, so we're seeing QEP, community-based engaged learning at Tech, learning communities at GGC. Awesome. Embedded tutors, first year experience, QEP. Nice. Undergrad research. Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. This is great. It looks like we have a lot of experience with high impact practices or other student success pedagogies. So at Georgia College, this really started several years ago. And, up in the top left corner, you'll see a picture from Robot Proof. That was one of our faculty learning communities that we led last year. But basically, we're very interested in kind of future-proofing education, higher education, thinking about what our students will need in the future. There was a push. Dr. Dorman had I think in 2016 started a strategic plan called Pathway to Preeminence. It was also working on this, college of what the university would look like in 2025 or higher ed would look like in 2025. So it was really future forward. So we had a group of faculty attend the High Impact Practice Institute in Oklahoma. That was in 2015. And they came back and really spent a good year working with faculty and staff, holding town hall sessions. They had a group called the Liberal Arts Renewal Project, and really kind of trying to rethink or think about what a liberal arts education looks like for the future. And out of all of these, as Cynthia said, she called it the year of dreaming. Out of that, year really emerged this idea of GC Journeys, which I'll talk about on the next slide. But, you know, the questions that we've been thinking about, and these are the questions I want to talk about today, is how do we support, you know, faculty, you know, from an institutional level, how do we do it at a college level, and how do we do it in the classroom to help support these student success pedagogies. So that's kind of our run of show. We'll sort of look at it from an institutional level. We'll look at it as an example from the college level, and then some classroom interventions. Okay, next slide. Okay, so so out of this, you know, year of dreaming and really bringing the entire institution together, I came up with this plan called GC Journeys. And what GC Journeys does is ask all students to complete 5 high impact practices during their time at Georgia College. You know, most studies have shown that college students on average are completing about 1.3 high impact practices during their 4 years. And so we really thought as the liberal arts, as the state's liberal arts university, we really wanted to lean into that and really ask them to really move forward more than just 1.3. So we're asking them to do 5. We have 3 of those that are embedded that all students will take no matter what. And then we have them choose 2. But then there's another piece of this, which is that we took the AAC and U's essential learning outcomes. We call them on campus, we call them essential skills. And so they're these skills, things like critical thinking, teamwork, written communication. And AAC&U has the value rubrics for these skills. And so we worked with each department to embed these skills into the core curriculum. So when a student goes through our core, they'll go through courses that have critical thinking embedded into it as a skill, or written communication embedded to it as a skill. And then there'll be, you know, there's an assessment based on that. So we really feel like, you know, not only are we offering these high impact practices and a lot of experiential learning for students, but we're also adding these skills that we think they'll need for the workplace. Okay, next slide. So when we were thinking about this, and we're thinking about, you know, what is it that our students need? What is it that we want to see from the students? The outcomes that we came up with that we thought students will need for the future, and what we'd like to see from our students are, you know, critical. We wanted problem solvers. We wanted them to be ethical, reflective, engaged citizens, skilled communicators. So these are the types of learning outcomes that we were looking at for GC Journeys. And so we have this as an institutional initiative, but in order to do that, you really have to support the faculty leading these experiences. So next slide, please. So go ahead, Cynthia.
We're at our next chat pop. You've got 30 seconds, putting 30 seconds on the clock. If you would jump into the chat and list ways your institution is currently developing faculty to help them develop practical strategies for supporting student success. Go.
Nice. So we see faculty reading groups, workshops, CTL workshops, learning circles, FLCs. Oh, a shout out to Georgia College's CETL. CETL, FLCs, great. Online instruction, Chancellor's Learning Scholars, FLCs, great.
Wonderful. Next slide. So this is a slide I really want to focus your attention in on, because I feel that too often we forget that educators need to intensively study teaching and learning to be successful at educating. I cannot think of a greater return on investment than helping faculty with that. You know, we get graduate degrees in our field, and so you know everything about chemistry or literature, but where and when are you supposed to learn about how to teach it? And so I really want to make sure that everyone hears that message, that we need to be supporting faculty through high quality development at every level. Because what we're asking for is very difficult. This idea of incorporating high impact practices into classrooms, that's not easy. And it's going to succeed or fail in individual classrooms. We can't just say to faculty, here's the initiative, go. And if they are shoehorning these into run-of-the-mill classes without a broad understanding of quality course design and how those initiatives would fit into that larger whole, they are going to wither. But if we really work to incorporate focused development with broader development, I think that's where the explosion in excellence could be tremendous. Next slide. So here's what we're doing at Georgia College. We're really trying to think about a wide variety of professional development opportunities. We've got 30-minute info sessions just to get people introduced to the key ideas of our GC Journeys program. Then for every faculty member, we've offered 2 90-minute workshops. Jordan mentioned that we've got kind of a 2-part program, the high impact practices and the essential learning outcomes. So there was one on each of those to really start getting people up to speed and thinking about what they might want to do. We offer individual appointments for anyone who wants to work one-on-one. We've got some fantastic faculty learning communities going. And perhaps the most unusual thing that we're doing is offering a 16-week course to faculty. You wouldn't think that a lot of people would sign up for a 16-week course on course design. 2 hours a week, that's a lot of time to put in. But faculty signed up in droves. I think about a third of our faculty have taken that course. Really highly recommend it. And kind of what I want to say right here is, please contact me if you would like help with this. I'm putting into the chat some materials that I've put together that everyone is welcome to use.
And while she's doing that, I'll say for our 30-minute info sessions, we called it, GC guide training. And, it was a pretty easy easy entry in there, and they get a sticker that says, ask me about GC Journeys. And then from there, we scaled way up.
Right at the moment, we're doing an 8-week version of the course. It's a book club. And what I've done is put all the materials that we're using in that book club into a Google Drive that any one of you can access. All you have to do is jump in there and you're good to go. So please consider emailing me and I'll give you a hand. Next slide. Here's what we try to look at in that course. We call it Design for Transformative Learning. And we're looking at how high impact practices and essential learning outcomes fit into the bigger picture. Essentially, apparently we're doing everything that that Jeff had on his first slide. Heavy focus on equity. If you don't know about TILT, Transparency in Learning and Teaching, you should know, it's fantastic. And what we found is that long-term faculty development seems to actually draw far more interest than the one-offs. And I think that goes contrary to what most of you are thinking. Faculty don't have time. Sure, they'll come to a single lunch and learn, but why would they come to something that was so long-term? And yet we've found that that's exactly what happens. Next slide.
So this is our High Impact Practices Institute, which we ran this summer. And we sort of had, because of the pandemic, we had to rethink how we were going to do the institute. But really what we were looking here is, how do you embed a HIP into a course? How do you run a HIP? How do you make it, high impact versus just, a normal course? And because we were doing it online, one of the benefits is we were able to bring some guest speakers, and we were able to really kind of break up how we did the course, and stretch it out over time. We were able to connect. We paired faculty into interest groups based on their HIP. We had, I think, 1 week where we just talked about HIPs in general. And then after that, we paired them into groups based on their HIP, put them with experts, and gave them time to design a high impact practice. So at the very end of the course, they were able to do presentations on what they had designed. Um, Anything else? Oh, and that also helped us with the quality control piece. We gave them a certification, to teach HIPs based in GC Journeys as well. Anything I'm missing here, Cynthia?
Nope, I think you've got it. It
All
worked
right.
beautifully.
Yeah, it did. If you look at the left, that's just an example or a picture from, or screenshot from one of our courses. And we actually had Jeff Galley come and speak to, he was one of our guest speakers to that class. All right, next slide.
So next chat pop. I'll let Michael introduce it.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia and Jordan. So I'd like us to focus on what's happening on the ground in the departments and the colleges and your schools, really to help build faculty capacity to support student success. So if you want to go ahead and share your experiences and thoughts and initiatives in the chat.
Good.
Looks like there might be some opportunity here for everyone to explore some things going on. Good.
There's your 30 seconds.
Perfect. Thank you. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, I've been here at Georgia College since July 1, and of a history of being an academic leader and a faculty member. And another hat I wear is president of a nonprofit management organizational behavior teaching society, and it's been part of my academic identity since I was a doctoral student. And that organization is really focused on teaching and learning and enhancing the student experience. So I think, I'm coming from a place where I believe the role of an academic dean is to foster a culture of self-care and faculty development. And that part of that's, over time has been influenced by Berg and Sieber's book. They, I think, articulated in Slow Professor, their book from 2016, articulated a lot of my own experience as a faculty member and the pushes and pulls of being a faculty member. And so I think deans and academic leaders should really lean in to help our faculty find time to reflect and to think and to collaborate. And a bit of what Cynthia had mentioned, I'm finding that meaningful and lasting collaboration happens organically and over time. And rather than it being forced by, well, we need resources, so let's do what the dean says and go ahead and form this group. I think my role as a dean is to help them find the space and time to act with purpose, to cultivate relationships, to help support their teacher-scholar identity. And obviously, we all know why we're here. The students are our priority, but the student success, I believe, that's predicated on the resources and the attention that we're giving to our faculty for self-care and to foster that culture of faculty development. And I know, I think I often think in metaphors, and I know we all haven't traveled by air very recently, but I think if you think back to the last time you flew, there's a pre-departure ritual, right? We're told to place the oxygen mask over our own mouths before helping or assisting others. And so each time I fly, I chuckle because I'm reminded how important it is for us to devote time and energy to support ourselves and our colleagues, because only then I think we'll be able to really create and sustain some innovative and impactful teaching for our students. So on the ground here in the College of Business, in the first several months, I've engaged on a listening tour, and part of that was talking with our college's faculty development committee, which was a great sign to me, interviewing that the college has a faculty development committee. I thought that was a strong signal of how important it is here in the culture to support each other. So I talked with them and challenged them to think about ways to support our faculty during this pandemic. And as the new dean, the dean on the screen, it seems, I've often heard from the faculty how they miss each other. Those physical face-to-face interactions, the hallway chats, the social gatherings, that time to engage, to reflect with each other and to collaborate. And so with the leadership of Joy Godine, who's on the call today, in the audience, so to speak, we created a college-specific faculty learning circle in a virtual setting, really in the middle of this past fall semester. And we did that in collaboration with our Center for Teaching and Learning. They were tremendous support for us in this. So there were no extrinsic incentives or funding to participate, right? This was clearly an idea that emerged from thinking about what our faculty needs are for peer engagement, and really a craving to learn from each other and on what they're doing now in response to the pandemic, and how they're creating an experiential learning context for their student learning. So our FLC in the College of Business meets about every other week on a Thursday or Friday, and it's fascinating, and I think it speaks to the success. We've had about 30% of our faculty participate, about 20 faculty participate in these sessions, and the composition shifts each time, which I think is also helpful. The topics have been everything from strategies to embed undergraduate research into their courses, to pedagogies in a high flex context, thinking about even promotion and tenure, which I think has been really helpful. A lot of anxiety during this period. And then in the next couple of weeks, actually in March, we're inviting associate editors from a peer-reviewed SAGE journal called Management Teaching Review to meet with our faculty to discuss ways of engaging in scholarship of teaching and learning, and kind of using the classroom as a laboratory for examining experiential learning practices. So I think that'll be a great time for faculty to learn from folks in the field. And I think participation is one indicator of success, but anecdotally, I'm really hearing that this has become a space for faculty to come together when they otherwise wouldn't have it, to support their interests. We're having another FLC that's actually in concert with the Chancellor's Learning Scholar program, and this is led by one of our junior faculty, and she's worked to create space for new faculty to discuss the challenges and opportunities and to share experiences. They meet monthly, very informal setting, actually on the porch of Atkinson Hall, hence it's called the Porch Group. And in the picture, if you're not familiar with Atkinson Hall, there's a beautiful porch overlooking our campus. And this informal setting, I think, has really brought about new friendships, new interactions for partnerships across disciplines. And one particular example of the impact of this is they've started on their own, not a direction from a department chair or their dean, to start peer-to-peer teaching observations as a way to solicit feedback, really in a safe and developmental setting. I thought that was really impressive. So, and I often, when I leave the office in the evening, they're out there on the porch, sitting around, talking and engaging with each other, socially distanced with masks. Lastly, and I'll be quick with this, but this is something that I saw as an opportunity, and And I think that this may be another opportunity for other colleges and universities in the system to leverage. Georgia College is a member of the Council of Public Liberal Arts Colleges, which is headquartered at UNC Asheville. It's a consortium of 29 public liberal arts universities. Now, we're the public liberal arts university of the state of Georgia, but think about other sector-specific universities that could be sources of collaboration. We've begun having conversations with them about scaling up resources, seeing them as an umbrella by which we could expand learning opportunities for our faculty and our students. So for instance, COPLAC and the Bunting College of Business and Georgia College are co-hosting a talk by Dr. Ray Andre from Northeastern University on teaching climate leadership and associated pedagogies. So rather than exposing our own students to this and our own faculty to this content, we're leveraging the consortium to broaden our community. And in the same vein, we're having conversations about how could we, as a college of business, collaborate with the other colleges and departments of business at the other COPLAC member institutions to start a undergraduate research community specific in the area of business studies. We have like-minded faculty and students at our COPLAC member institutions who really value this high impact practice. And so this to us is an obvious opportunity to create community outside the college to our particular sector. And I'm happy to answer questions as we move along, but I know our time is running short, so I'll hand it off to Cynthia.
All right.
Sorry, I'm not sure what I just did with the slide.
Get backwards.
No
That's all
worries.
right.
I think 2 slides down from here.
We're at another chat pop.
Okay, sorry about that.
Chat pop, 30 seconds. We know student and faculty anxiety is on the high side right now. What steps is your institution taking to help faculty provide students with practical strategies for building their psychological fitness? 30 seconds, go.
Nice. Peer coach outreach, telecounseling program, the flourishing class, yes. Peer mentors.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm guessing this is where we might need the most work. Next slide. So we talked about what we can do at the institution level, what would be some great ideas for the department program kind of level, college level. What about the classroom level, individual faculty and individual classrooms? So I want to talk about some targeted supports. Targeted supports are simple, low cost, low time commitment types of supports. You may be familiar with some of these that the USG has already promoted, such as academic mindset and social belonging and wise feedback. Those should definitely be expanded to more classrooms. So now I want to talk to you about adding targeted supports aimed at increasing psychological fitness for students and faculty. Next slide. So I'm going to teach you a couple of them really quickly, just so you see how quick and easy these are. So the first one I'm going to teach you is to reduced catastrophizing, and it's called worst case, best case, most likely case. All humans do this. You get a thought in your head and you kind of catastrophize about it. Like, my 16-year-old daughter was supposed to be home at 10. It's 10:30. She's probably dead. That's what human brains do. So how do you fight that? We know our students are probably having these kind of thoughts frequently. I didn't turn in this one thing, I'm going to fail the class. So that's the worst case. Your brain generates it for you. What you can then do is come up with a best case scenario. It's helpful if it's kind of funny. Like, oh, my daughter's probably not home because she's probably trying to find a florist that's open at this hour to get me some flowers, something like that. And then you can think about what's probably the most likely case. And at that point, you've often kind of tamed your brain enough that you can think more reasonably about next steps. So that's a quick and easy thing we can teach students to do rather than letting that worst case just grab them and hold them. Another just really quick thing we could be teaching students who maybe have some anxiety over tests or public speaking, things like that. Some really interesting studies have found that if you ask students for just 5 minutes to choose a value that matters to them, friendship, mercy, family, and write about it for 5 minutes before the test or public speaking, that helps kind of helps them realize that the world is bigger than just this one thing that's about to happen. And they can reframe what's happening by saying, instead of thinking, I'm anxious about this, you can't think I'm calm. It's too far for your brain to go from anxious to calm. But if they instead say, I'm excited about this, in your brain, it isn't a very far distance to go from I'm anxious to I'm excited. So reframing as excitement. And then instead of thinking, I have to do this, if you just change the words in your head to, I get to do this, research suggests that that makes a huge difference. Again, a very simple thing we could be teaching students, very little time, big output. Next slide.
So we wanted to also include ways that we were working to improve. So, for us, I think one of the biggest things is that momentum takes time. You've got to be patient. We've definitely hit some brick walls, and we just know that doing these things, trying to build a culture that to support faculty, offering student success pedagogies, it'll take time. So, just keep that in mind. And also, a lot of things that we have done are specific to, or have helped having the liberal arts mission, but there's no magic bullet. I've been at other institutions. So some things that will work at one institution just won't work at another. And so that's something really important to consider.
And we definitely learned you have to focus on communication early. Nothing is going to move forward without quality messaging. It's one of the hardest things. Keep working on it. And
that came up in our mindset, or in our momentum team meeting yesterday, even.
There you go. And perhaps most importantly, you have to remember that it's about building relationships, inviting lots of individuals, like individually inviting them into the process. It really comes down to that. That is time consuming, but there's no way around it. That's what's important. Next slide.
So I think there are lessons learned. I know for me in the last 7 or 8 months, and part of that is listening. And I guess as I've had the privilege as a new dean to spend a lot of time listening, but leverage what you hear. Focus on the needs and passions of your faculty and empower them to take the lead. Yes, it's helpful to have a leader of the unit to preach the gospel, but you really need that buy-in from faculties to the owners. And think about redefining your community. Think about partner universities in your sector to help expand the conversation and the programming.
And on that note, especially thinking about community and partners, you also want to think about, how do you scale these things? We've sort of asked this question of, how do we support faculty that are offering these student success pedagogies, and we've been thinking about it from different levels. So I think that's one of the biggest parts is how do you scale this across departments, institutions, colleges, etc.
And you've got to meet faculty where they are, offer a variety of different development opportunities, make some of them big and deep and long-term and relationship building. Don't make it all little one-offs. Please utilize the materials that I've built, that other people have built. You don't have to recreate the wheel with this. And start thinking about psychological fitness. Another one of the links that I put in the chat is a link to a series of modules that all have like a white paper in them covering the key ideas around psychological fitness. That's us. I think we're handing things off.
Thanks,
I
Denise.
didn't want to interrupt. That was fantastic, y'all. Can we give them a virtual hand clap? This is fantastic. Good job. All of this will be archived and posted on the pages here, so we have a chance to go back to it and revisit and relearn and reflect. I'm thinking of the time, so I'm thinking about Kennesaw State's team. Michele, we're going to turn it over to you.
Great, thank you so much. Where am I? All right, I thought I was muted. Hi, everybody. So I'm going to share my screen, and you should see it here. Oops. I have it on the wrong slide. I was trying to be ready, and I was ready, and then I lost it, and I wasn't ready anymore. All right, so welcome, everybody. We are the team from Kennesaw State University, and as I was listening to the previous team, I was looking for the similarities and looking for the differences. And so I think it will be fun for you as well to sort of note some of the red thread running through both of the presentations, but also see how we have adapted similar concepts to our own unique context, and then we can have more of that conversation in the breakouts. So we were asked to talk about responding to change in the classroom, and there is a lot of ways in which we're responding to change, but in this particular session, we are interested in spotlighting a program that we are really excited about, and it's the Course Transformation Academy at Kennesaw State University. And so for our own specific context, and actually I should say I'm here with my team, and it's myself, and I'll let them introduce themselves as well. But I am the Executive Director for the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning on campus.
And I'm Krista Rocher. I'm the Faculty Executive Director of General Education and Curriculum.
And I'm Scott Reese. I am the Director for the Course Transformation Academy and an Associate Dean over in the College of Science and Math.
Great, thank you so much. So in terms of the change, what change are we responding to? Well, first of all, the change in demographics of our student body, which at our institution means a dramatic increase in, well, first of all, in enrollment, but also particularly in traditionally underserved population of students. And enrollment-wise, we've almost doubled since I got there 10 years ago. So we've added a whole other KSU next to it. We're gonna hit 40, we already hit 40,000. We're going to increase that in the fall as well. And so, as they were saying before, my colleagues, it really is at the course level that initiatives succeed or fail. And so we must figure out ways to impact the courses to make a difference. That's that was our goal, our task. And so we reimagined the work that we did for GTC Gateways to Completion into the Course Transformation Academy. And there are three specific aspects to that course that each one of us will take one. First of all, how we target specific courses for this kind of work. How we get people on board, all our stakeholders, and get their buy-in. And then the faculty development, that's going to be the crucial part about this. How do we support faculty in making the transition? So let me turn it over to Chris for the course identification aspect.
All right, well, good morning. So there are several aspects that we can consider in identifying potential courses, and I'm going to briefly discuss those in the next few slides. This first slide is focusing on considering the purpose of a course. And so one way that we can identify courses for their possible inclusion in this initiative is to consider their role in the university curriculum. The general education core curriculum, it's often students' first experience with college level expectations. Often these courses introduce students to new ways of thinking or offer students a new experience unfamiliar to them. And as a result, students really may struggle to be successful in their early college coursework. And so these courses should be included as a starting point for consideration. And in addition to the university level curriculum, It's also important to examine the purposes of courses and some of their functions within program or programs. Identifying lower level courses that are prerequisites for multiple majors, or courses that are part of a program's admittance requirements, or courses that are mandatory for all students within programs are also good candidates. Anytime that we see the curriculum constrict, these courses often function as gates or gateway courses to majors should be considered because they're also sites where students often struggle. A struggle can be another aspect to be considered in this, to be included in this consideration. So on the next slide, offers just an overview of how to measure the impact of courses on students' progress. And the general starting point is to look at students who earned the grade of a D or an F, withdrew from the course, or earned an incomplete. And this DFWI rate is a common way to identify the impact a course has on students' progression and success. And how you determine what the DFWI rate should be before a course merits consideration can vary. Our working number at KSU is 20%, but I'm going to put an asterisk on that because of an example that I'm going to share in a moment. But typically you see a range of between 15% or higher as a good starting point for identifying courses for consider based on DFWI rate. And although courses with this high overall DFWI rate creates a pool of potential options, this holistic DFWI rate may also just be a starting point. It's often useful to investigate that number further. Even in courses with a lower DFWI rate, when that rate is broken down, equity issues may become apparent. And so when we disaggregate the DFWI data, that can assist us in identifying populations within a course that are struggling to succeed. So a course might be a good candidate for this initiative, even if there isn't a high overall DFWI rate, if we break down the data further and find there's a disproportionate experience happening among the students within that course that's apparent upon closer consideration. Another way to identify course impact is through volume. High enrollment courses should always be a go-to for this initial consideration for these types of initiatives, even if their overall DFWI rate's not that high. So at KSU, we did include a course with a DFWI rate less than our institutional consideration of 20%, but we did so because of the volume of students in that course. This was a general education course, and it was a requirement for every student. So when we're considering course impact, it's important to note that a high enrolled course, even if it has a lower DFWI rate of say 18%, can affect more students than a smaller enrolled course with a higher DFWI rate. When you're considering the course's volume, almost Michaela, overall enrollment is also a useful starting point, but it can require context. So it's also important to identify courses that have capacity constraints, such as labs, whose overall volume of students might be lower compared to mini courses, but that every student that's unsuccessful then is a student who has to go back and take that course again. And when there's physical limitations, so the number of students that can be enrolled, like a lab space, you can very quickly have a situation where there's not enough seats to meet student demand. And so this delayed progression is another way that students can be impacted. On the next slide, the last aspect that I'm going to briefly discuss is a consideration of a course's capacity for change. And this can be a bit ambiguous, and my colleagues are going to get into this further, but it is an important consideration to have is to discuss whether changing this course is going to result in a positive and lasting impact. And this requires a level of faculty enthusiasm, or at least faculty interest, to engage in change. Receptive faculty are vital in order to ensure that the experience is meaningful and that it results in a revision that offers a sustained and positive impact. And these types of changes also require administrative backing to ensure that faculty have a network of advocates supporting their work. The last consideration around the capacity for change of a course can be its alignment with other institutional, college, or departmental initiatives. If these courses are identified as part of one of these larger endeavors, it can assist in ensuring that the discussions related to change are not perceived as an isolated focus, but instead part of an ongoing effort to embrace continuous improvement in teaching and learning. So there are many criteria that can be considered when identifying a course for this initiative. And we hope these examples are a very brief overview. And now my colleague Scott is going to take over on the next section.
So, you know, as everybody has said, it's important for faculty and everybody to get involved and to be willing participants, especially for the kind of work that Michaela is going to talk about later. But getting there is part of the challenge. So On the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about recognizing the actors involved. We all sit around and talk about getting faculty buy-in, and it's extremely important as part of this process, and largely one of the foci. But recognize that it's in order to get faculty buy-in, you actually have to get institutional buy-in, and it is not preordained that everybody is on the same page when it comes to this kind of work. Department chairs come from the same space as faculty oftentimes, and can have some of the same views about change and student success pedagogies as their faculty. So if you don't bring them along in the process, you will stunt your program, that's for sure. And then institutional support is extremely important because the work of doing change, the work of bringing faculty along and making them successful in the classroom requires buy-in by deans, by provosts, and even by presidents, in not only in resource devotion, but also in just simply being supportive, and the ideas behind it being important for faculty to recognize, or be recognized as doing this work. In the next slide, our CTA is really bound around 7 key principles. And for those of you who have done Gateways to Completion, you will recognize some of these things, that's for sure. But we've added some flavors to it, right? Some things that we found that worked, because when we did Gateways to Completion, we found that project had successes in some areas and not in others. And we took a lesson from the places where it failed and the places where it succeeded and built this, right? And so we really believe that we've come to what is a better place for us, for sure. Obviously, a supportive environment for faculty is a key one. But for 2, we really strongly encourage all faculty, chairs, and deans to participate. Now, the level of participation is different, so it's not like we expect chairs and deans to play at every step of the game, but they are no longer left behind. So in the past, they were sort of left out of the conversation until the very end or until somebody wanted something. That is no longer the case. And then the institution itself has to be engaged. The other thing that's really important and sort of a key feature for our CTA is that we are not putting faculty on a timeline, right? So we don't come in and ask them to have it done in a year or 2 years or even 3 years. We have milestones. So you move through phases of the CTA based on your progress. And so some departments, some programs are going to move through faster than others, depending on where they are and how much their faculty need help be changing, right? Becoming real advocates for student success. That does allow us to let people in and out of the CTA at all different stages of development so that we can meet a program where it is and not force it through things that it doesn't need to necessarily do. For us, it's really important that student voices be a core feature of everything that we do. This has not traditionally been something that faculty do when they're thinking about student success pedagogies and course development, but it is absolutely vital for what it is you should be doing when we work on this sort of project. Next slide, please. I did not come here today to give you a full rundown of the CTA. The point here is just to get us to what Michele has to say about all the wonderful ways in which he helps faculty deal with student success pedagogies. But I did want to point out that the way in which we convince faculty is through this self-study. And the self-study is a fairly dramatic process that has 4 complete stages to it. It does include an analysis of DFWI rates, not because necessarily that's what we're the primary focus of anything, but because that's an identifier that tells us that there are challenges, and it allows us to explore how students are interacting with the course. There are lots of, obviously, analyses of various aspects of the course, from how it's aligned within itself, which is a big deal, to how support structures are wrapped around it, and even where it sits inside of a larger degree program. All of those are important characteristics that we need to get to in order for us to really convince faculty that this is worth changing and to identify where those changes need to be. Once we've done that, we're pretty confident that faculty are ready for change. And then we hand them over to Michele. So I will hand this conversation over to Michele.
Great, thank you, Scott. And so I want to tell you the plan that we have for this program for the Course Transformation Academy. But before talking about that, I also want to say a little bit about the philosophy that's behind the way we do faculty development, which actually Jordan and his group already spoke to a little bit. I saw points of similarities in there. But this is what we believe at CEDAW in terms of what makes our work in faculty development effective. It needs to be research and evidence-based. That's the language that faculty speak, and that's what they respond to. It needs to be voluntary. I always say we are not, nor will we ever be, the center for bad teachers. This is something that, not something that you're sent to, but something that you embrace of your own if this is to be successful. It's formative. We're not there to evaluate, how good you are and who's better and best and giving the awards. We believe that everybody has strengths and areas to improve on, and our job is to affirm the strengths and point out areas where they can grow. It's just in time and goal directed in the sense that those are principles of adult learning. Faculty are adults, they're learning about new pedagogies and new ways of teaching, but they don't want to hear everything there is to know about HIMSS. They are trying to solve a specific problem in their course. And so they're interested in learning the thing about that area. They turn to us with who have the whole corpus of knowledge for us to extract the things that will make a difference for them. And maybe just a little more context so that it's not just a raw application. But it needs to be really targeted and focused. It's empowering. They are in charge. This is their course. They will succeed or fail. And this is not something that we want to do to faculty. Neither Scott nor Chris nor I have any interest in doing that. We want to do something with faculty to empower them to do good things for the students. And it needs to be context aware, whether it's disciplinary context or whether it's other kinds of context, of which I can say a little more actually. So this is the context. We're inheriting from G2C, like Scott said, all the things that we learned there, but it's not G2C. They don't want to do G2C again. They've done that, or they've passed on it for specific reasons. It's a teaching initiative, and it's an ambitious teaching initiative at that, at an ambitious research university that has set very specific goals and has communicated strong priorities in terms of research. So how do we make this relevant in the context of that? It's not incentivized, which might not be news to other people in the room, but we're coming from a strong tradition of having such initiatives incentivized on our campus. And that went away. That not with this one. That went away a few years ago. It's just not feasible anymore in the current climate that we're living in. We're all feeling the squeeze. But that was a motivator before, and now it's not. And we also have a strong shared governance tradition built in academic freedom, and that manifests itself in the way that faculty do not want to be told what to do in the classroom. Who are you to tell me what I do in my course is my business, is my academic freedom. Don't tell me I have to use this hip or that hip or this fad or get on that bandwagon, etc. So it's really important that the message not be presented in that way. So that's where we're coming from. And that's with those constraints and features in mind, we try to hash out a program. So we believe it has a good structure. We're excited about it. So let us tell you a little bit about the structure of the CTA. It has multiple semesters. In the initial semester, we're meeting with them multiple times after they have been selected with the criteria that Chris identified, and after Scott has done the work to get everybody on board, the leadership, the deans, the chairs, and the faculty. So they are going to be there. I don't have to convince them of that. They've already bought in that sense. But still, who am I? I'm a stranger to them in a sense. I need to listen. There's going to be a lot of listening initially while they go through that process, that self-diagnosis, the data collection. to help them identify what the challenges are, to help them name the challenges, maybe give them a language to talk about the issues that they are all facing. And then we're going to go away and we're going to come back with a few suggestions that are research-based for sure, that could help in their particular context. We're not coming back with everything. This is what we know from the literature of feedback. You can only offer probably 2-3 major points of work. Everything else gets lost. The brain just will not take all of that in. And so we'll give workshops on a couple of ideas that have that strike us as they could be good answers to the problems that they are identifying. What are those? I don't know at this point because I don't know what they will identify, but we have some general ideas. These are some of the possible topics that we anticipate we could be exploring. Certainly a foundation in the learning sciences. Everything we do needs to take into account how students learn. And so if their teaching and pedagogical interventions are going to be successful. Constructive alignment, aligning their courses, making sure that they're testing what they're teaching, that they're teaching what they want the students to learn, and that everything is moving in the same directions. Obviously, pedagogies of engagement. A lot of these courses, like Chris said, they're large courses, they're gateway courses. So all the literature on large classes has a lot to say about that. Pedagogies of inclusion. Especially, we're seeing differential effects in terms of who's falling behind. And so we need to put a stop to that, obviously. Mindset, obviously, at a momentum approach conference, obviously we're going to talk about mindset. Transparency in learning and teaching, that's already been mentioned by the previous group. Authentic and educative assessments, helping faculty create ways of assessing student knowledge that ask them to use that knowledge in the ways that they would actually, the professionals in the field would actually be using it, and not just a multiple choice test. Pedagogy is collaborative, cooperative learning, team-based learning, anything that will help students learn in teams, because that's a crucial aspect of learning, as well as signature pedagogies in specific disciplines. So history is really big, for instance, on reacting to the past. That's not something that I'm going to propose to physics, but it might come up if we work with history. And then each discipline will have their own way in which they have realized over the decades that they've been teaching it that it makes more sense to present the material to their students. So these are some of the topics. This is not a curriculum. We're not going to put everybody through this set of 9 topics. We will pick and choose out of these, and possibly even more depending on what they identify. And then they start working. Now the transformation actually starts. They need to commit to something. They need to commit and explore how this might work in their courses. And they might start transforming. And one of the things that I believe is that I'm an incrementalist. You need to build in little changes over time. Otherwise, faculty don't like change, but students don't like change, and will respond negatively if you change everything on them out of what they expected. And so this will take some time. So tilt one assignment, see how that goes. Collect the data, analyze it, bring it back to the students. Then, now you're in week probably 5 by the time you do that. Tilt another one, that's good effort for the first semester if that's what you decide to do. Group consultations will be available at that level, at the course level. So all the people teaching sections of the course, they're all facing the same challenges, and we are able to work with all of them together. And in fact, what we've learned from GTC, the groups that really kind of gelled together and start sharing and talking and problem solving together, those have been the diamond heads of GTC. And we expect similar process will sort of be in place here. They will actually need to teach their transformed courses at some point if they do a course redesign or whatever they do. And so at this point, the focus shifts from workshops and imparting knowledge to sort of giving them feedback, holding a mirror to them. A lot of that can happen through classroom observations. We have a strong classroom observation program, confidential, collaborative, constructed, and that can involve a lot of things. It can involve just talking about what's going on in your class, but it can involve one of us actually sitting in their courses and collecting descriptive feedback. I noticed that when you did this, the students, perked up and responded. And when you did that, they got on their cell phones instead. So what do you make of that kind of thing? Also collecting data from the students. It's so important to bring the student voice into any kind of transformative process like this. And so we can do surveys, we can do focus groups, we can do small group instructional diagnosis, anything like that. Reviews of any other materials you want us to look at, or maybe get us into your D2L course and review the whole online course where you can do that. And we always give written summaries, so there's no ambiguity in terms of what we saw and what we recommended. They're confidential, but there is a record. And then now the challenging part comes. The challenge is to scale this up. This is a lot of work to do with all the sections of a large gen ed course, right? Imagine scaling this up to all the gen ed courses, or even all the courses at the university. I don't have the staff to do classroom observations in every section, obviously, or any other things that I talked about. And so in that case, we are looking at creating models where they do peer observations on each other. I have published on how to establish such programs in the past, so that is something that we can definitely do at our institution, and it will be one way that we can scale up. And then we're still not done. Now the integration part comes. You've done a couple changes in your course. Maybe they went well, maybe one of them went well, the other one not so much. So like any other iterative process, you reflect, you commit to something, you implement it, you collect data, you monitor how it's going, you analyze, you reflect, you're going to tweak. And then you're going to reflect again on how the new tweak went. And so it's going to be a spiral type process where you're revisiting sort of similar issues, but at a higher and higher altitudes. And so you're learning from this process. By now, the faculty should have their own momentum where they are empowered and confident that they can continue to iterate. At the same time, we are now ready to bring in a new cohort of groups. And we've also learned, and we can incorporate lessons from how that process went the first time. And so we'll take advantage of that for the next one. So in conclusion, this is not a quick fix. We believe that this will really move the needle, but it will take time. Just like any successful intervention will do. And so this is a commitment institutionally. We do know that it has the potential to be successful because it has all the elements of successful faculty development initiatives. We are attending to the cognitive components, we're educating the faculty so they can educate the students, we're attending to the emotional part of that and the motivational and the social part of that. We're bringing all the lessons that we learned from G2C and from Momentum Year, Momentum Approach. It targets the courses where we'll get the biggest bang for our buck. Where the most students will benefit. And most importantly, we have an ecosystem of administrative support. My office, Chris's office, Scott's office, other offices as needed at the ready. And so in that synergy, I think is going to be also another key of success. So we're excited. So that's all I have to say at this point. We can talk to anybody, those are our emails, but I'm going to turn it back to the
I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat a link to a Padlet and go to the breakout rooms. We're just going to be in there for maybe 8 minutes. Go ahead and open the Padlet now from that link in the chat. And we're going to ask you to go in there, and we just want you to think about what we've talked about today and how you can apply this at your own institution with your own students. There's some different levels of questions. And in your group, you don't have to answer all 5 of them, maybe just focus on 1 or 2 that interests you. Mm-hmm. And then we'll pull you back in after about 8 minutes. And Jeff will tell us what he sees from your comments. So I'm going to go ahead and send you off now, and we'll see you back in about 8 minutes. Well, Jeff, I think everyone is back. Do you want to talk through what you're seeing in the Padlet? Maybe a couple minutes, and then we can open it for questions.
Reading them now. I'm reading them now because we were in such a good discussion in our group. Scanning these, and I'm looking at the time also, I see some commonalities in programs, FYE, course projects, undergraduate research. So further sharing may be ahead for us. I have in my notes, call Scott Reese, it's call Michele, call Georgia College. So there are further, I think one of the needs is to address further curiosity, further questions that are emerging as a result of listening to these presentations. Challenges that are coming up, changes, this is the fourth column. Financial challenge is the biggest one that recurs because of the pandemic, decline in enrollment, going virtual, now we're returning to face-to-face. How do we handle such ideal, wonderful programs? How do we set up such programs in the current world that we live in? I don't have an easy answer for that one. I have some instinctive responses, but that's a very good observation. The commonality of what also recurs through here is the CETLs. The work of the CETLs seems to show up in quite a number of comments. The work of Michele, Denise at the system level, Jordan, Jim Berger, who I think was in the crowd, but as Cynthia Albee, other professionals, tapping into the CETLs seems to be the best way forward. And then I think that the final thing, and this came up in our breakout session, is that in order for this kind of thing to work, I mean, there are a lot of moving parts, but there has to be a joining, a partnership between the senior leadership, a vision on the president's, provost, the dean's levels, with those who logistically put it into reality. There has to be a partnership with the CETLs and other like-minded experts in the campus. And then I would say now we have this opportunity to reach outward, to reach across campuses in the USG, to share best practices, to share knowledge, and to find a way, maybe through a virtual platform, Denise, to share some of these best programs as well. Some of the other, Michele or Cynthia, others may have an observation to close us out too. We're nearing about 3 minutes left.
I think the thing that I just can't stress enough is that every institution in the system is doing something really, really well. And if you can figure out what that is and then go talk with them about it, reach out, stalk people at meetings, that's, to me, that's where the growth really tends to happen.
I love that.
Yeah, I do too. Well, I want to say thank you again to everyone, Jordan's team, everyone from Kennesaw State. Scott, you were in my breakout section. Chris, fantastic information. I still want to make a call to ask how this program can be pulled off at the scale that you all are facing or experiencing or living with at Kennesaw State. The lived-in liberal arts college kind of feeling at Georgia College, that was the last 10 years of my life before going to the board at Emory. And so I feel right at home with the ideals and programs and faculty who are living within that institution too. So going forward, momentum takes a long time to build. That's what Jordan told us. He said it takes, it's a slow growth. It takes a long time to build. And what Michael says, it takes people and trust and building it. I think we've got a good foundation in these institutions and many of the others, most of the others across the USG. West Georgia, are you still in the room, Rod? I see him waving. He has a team, I don't know if you all can see this, but the West Georgia has a group in a classroom, and I don't know that they have audio. They might close us out with a final word as well.
I think we have audio. Can you hear us?
I can, yeah.
Okay. Well, this is Rob McGran, the director of the Center for Teaching and Learning at West Georgia. And so the aspect that we've been talking about is how can we use faculty experience in ways that aren't burdensome to already overworked faculty, but can sort of tap into the skills that they have and the interest that they have and the passion they have to be able to connect with their students, to then sort of propagate out from there, making that scalable and looking at ways that we can broaden the use of faculty in really productive ways that enhance their careers and end up resulting in enhanced experience of learning for students. And so the practices we see from the other centers at Kennesaw State and at Georgia College, I think great examples for us all in this work to be able to look at ways that we can make the most of faculty.
Thank you. All right, y'all, we're up at 11 o'clock. I saw David Newton in the audience. David, no, he wasn't speaking. All right, thank you again from everyone at the system office. We're all building momentum slowly. This is a good thing, and we will see you in other sessions. Thank you so much.